is up, you heathens and demons, you beautiful, blasphemous people? Welcome back to A Raging Atheist. And today is gonna be a doozy. It's gonna be a dumpster fire. And I'm a little afraid. Because we all know that I believe in the supernatural. And Messenger Reveals has laid out a curse for 2020. And it reads as such. Warning for 2020. Do not oppose the messenger in disingenuous ways. The results could be hardships in many forms: sickness, poverty, homelessness, heart attacks, disease, etc. Just being helpful. So we have a curse, y'all. And I need to be extra wary because we all know I take these things seriously. So I'm doing this in 2019. Because, I don't want to get a curse. What's up, y'all? Messenger's so funny. Because this is actually hard for me to do. I considered Messenger Reveals to be a friend. Now, Messenger Reveals continues to attack people that I care about. I actually made a 30-minute Messenger Reveals video when he infiltrated my Discord server. He claims that he didn't, and maybe he didn't, who knows. But I made a 30-minute video back then just to show what actually happened, because it was when the channel was really, picking up for the year. I was getting the most subs at the time that I had ever gotten. And it was mainly because of dumpster fires like we're going to fucking watch today. But I considered Messenger a friend, and I guess I should say what's up to the chat. I haven't yet. Daily Atheist is up in the house. PMars2, not going to read that deleted message. He was timed out. I'm not sure who you are. Be nice. I'm not going to take time because this is going to take a while. We're going to get through this. Just play nice. And don't ban him don't time him out unless he's breaking the rules. Whoever that is. But just by using a sock account, you are kind of breaking our rules. But no, everybody doesn't know the rules. Let them speak, whatnot. Critical Cripple's here. Rational Canadian Atheist. I know Callan, my girl, is here. Hopefully AR will show up because AR is going to be a big part of this. And she will hopefully be here, but she's going through a time. What's going on, guys? The dumpster fire hasn't even started, and the dumpster fire is starting in chat. Let's be a little liberal with the chat. Let's not hide people for laughing my fucking ass off. Guys, let's be good in the chat. Let's follow our own rules. And I really don't, I don't want to spend. He needs to go. Trust me. Yeah, you guys can inform me, but let's just not play Nazis in the chat. And I really want to get into this. And I say that lovingly. Hopefully AR will get here. But this is very hard for me, because I did consider Messenger a friend. We talked a lot behind the scenes. And as we go through this, I think the thing that I really want to hammer home is I gave him chance after chance after chance after chance. I try to tell him, dude, it's your wording. You say cure when you obviously are sticking to it when you really shouldn't anymore. And it's kind of what Messenger does because he attacks and he doesn't like to be wrong. And I found that out the hard way. But I kept giving him chances. I like the guy's intelligence, and I like that his Christianity doesn't make him hate people. But then he says some really woo shit like we're gonna get into today, and it became a fucking problem on this channel. I kept telling them, like, I don't want to have this conversation on my channel. And you're going to see the beginning today. We're not going to get into all of it. This is much bigger than I remember it being. It spanned a lot of streams, and a lot of the streams were long back then. And this first stream was the most important because this is when it happened. All right, so... You guys, all right. I'm just gonna pretend not to. You guys can fill me in on what's going on. Obviously, you have reasons. Yeah, we're gonna get into it. The chat, like, I didn't expect the dumpster fire in the chat to begin with. So, like, obviously, we're bringing some people in here that's might be not so happy about what I'm gonna talk about today. But you know, when it comes to the disingenuous thing, I don't do disingenuous. I'm gonna show you what happened. And I'm going to try to tell you and relay to you how I felt about it as it happened. Some of the behind the scenes conversations me and Messenger was having as it happened. And I'm going to try to just be honest. And I'm going to try to talk about why I had to decide not to let him on this channel anymore. And the reason that I have to do this, because I wasn't really going to talk about Messenger anymore, is because he continues to attack these people relentlessly. Relentlessly. So, what's up, Carlton? Everybody in the chat. It's going to be a shit show. As I said when I first got into the live chat, this could be the dumpster fire of the year that we're going to watch. Maybe across all channels. I don't fucking know. Definitely on this one. Definitely on this one. Because we're getting into some weird territory here. And I am definitely not an expert on this shit. Which is why I didn't want to have it on my channel. But we would bring in people that do know their shit. And it would span several channels. It would spill over into Cers's live chats. It came onto the GDC. Several of my chats. This was a fucking thing for a while. The cure for PTSD. But we're going to start off on a positive note. The first time that I ever had Richard Madsen on my channel.
Saying it's right. I just wanted to see it happen because I knew, because I know Aaron would.
I wanted to see it happen too. Believe me.
He's came in here and had a one-on-one conversation, just open conversation. He wasn't afraid of it at all. And in fact, like it turned into me pretty much yelling and screaming at him.
Hey,
he took it well.
Yeah. So
who's beard guy?
That's Richard showed up. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, everybody?
Hello. Nice to meet you, Richard. I saw him on Skylar's show, and I commented on his beard. That's a beautiful beard.
Oh, you can only see half of it. Here, I'll give you the rest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Holy shit!
Now that's a beard.
That's a beard.
From what I take from you, you're another one, a Christian, but you just have kind of different ways of looking at Christianity than other people do.
Yeah, different might be a huge understatement.
You and Messenger should get along.
Yeah.
Why do we have all the fake Christians in here?
Hey, wait, maybe we're the only real Christians. Maybe we're the only real Christians. How about that?
Maybe.
All right, so yeah, we're having a fun conversation. Ocean's there, John Peterson's there. He had become a regular. Shay's a regular. Messenger Reveals is a regular. And Shay, I think before this, had expressed concern about Messenger Reveals might be saying shit in Cyrus's chat, but I don't think we ever really got to it before this stream really started, so I didn't really have an understanding of what I was getting into. And if y'all know Shay, Shay's not afraid to tell somebody. Shay gonna call the motherfucker out, and it happens eventually. So it starts at 1:16:45. The cure for PTSD.
Things they want, but it's not. It doesn't work on 100%
You're the
of the people.
PTSD curing guy, aren't you? I forgot.
Wait a minute, Messenger. I thought you were perfect.
So no, I'm not perfect. So what was your name? The guy with the red hat?
You can call me the atheist rationale or tar.
Are you the guy that we've been having a Twitter
You guys have been having. I'm
lately.
sure you guys have been talking about it because your buddy kicked me off.
You
his
jumped
channel.
on my Steve McRae thread. It was kind of a fun little thing for a little while.
That's been interesting.
I just started reading that
because I started sharing some information about behavioral health because of some of the comments I was seeing in Surus's.
You were claiming that you can cure PTSD, but it can only be treated. It can't be cured.
According to who?
According to modern science.
No, that's
I got
not true.
cured of it.
No, you're incorrect because here's the thing that you guys don't understand because unless you've gone to school, and I'm talking about the master's or PhD level, then you don't understand all the nuances when it comes down to what's mental illness, what's a mood disorder, what are anxiety disorders, what are things that are attributed to different types of diagnoses.
What in your practice stops the amygdala from getting stuck?
What's that?
What in your practice stops the amygdala from getting stuck? Explain the science to me behind that, and then I might buy that you can cure PTSD.
The issue is not just the amygdala. The amygdala is the thing that regulates emotion.
I know there's more issues than just the amygdala, but
all right. So AR had recognized the messenger reveals as the person that had said that had made a claim that they could cure PTSD. Now, PTSD is an epidemic across this country. If you were back then, if you were here back then, I often talked about my ex-girlfriend, the love of my life. You know, she suffers from PTSD. Soldiers coming back from war suffer from PTSD. This is a huge epidemic in this country. You know, battered wives suffer from PTSD as my ex-girlfriend did, and so this is a very hot topic. Shay herself has suffered from PTSD, and it's going to become an issue because when Messenger gets backed into a corner, he attacks the person in a very personal way a lot. It's going to happen a little bit in this stream, but as this progresses, Messenger will start to attack people, and I will repeatedly ask Messenger to stop doing that. And he'll attack their PTSD, he'll attack their counseling. That will happen today with Dragnot and Shay here. He will attack Shannon Q's credentials, then try to pretend that he doesn't and then get called out. You're going to see it all. This is a fucking dumpster fire of dumpster fires that's going to progress for a month or two on the channel until finally enough was enough. And I was like, you know, after on the stream, I fucking asked him not to do it. He proceeded to do it again. And then still to this day proceeds to attack that very person every chance he gets. And yet I'm supposed to be scared of talking about it? Messenger reveals you're going to curse people from talking about your bad actions. But let's continue.
That's one angle I can take you on. Because
rationale, you
the
asked
cool
him a
thing
question.
about this is you only have to hit one link in your chain in order to debunk your entire argument. If you can't cure the entire problem, then the problem isn't cured.
Well, there's four.
So tell me how you can fix the amygdala.
There's four internal processes that all dictate how and why we act and choose and decide and behave the way we do. So one of them is a biological process, and this is basically your brain, your neurotransmitters, your hormones, and the effects of your body. Then you also have your cognitive, which is your prefrontal cortex, which regulates your thoughts and ideas. And then you have your midbrain that affects your emotions. That's the hippocampus, the amygdala, the thalamus. And you're talking about a lot of things that you guys don't understand. You guys go out and you read information that are written either
Explain the process that reverses trauma in the brain.
Trauma comes from a number of different things. Trauma isn't just one thing.
And how did you reach that conclusion? What studies did you do to reach that conclusion?
Well, I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling.
Well, you have a master's degree, but that's not what I'm asking. Where's your study?
What do you mean, where's my study?
Where's your study to prove that you can reverse this trauma with
because the clients that I work with
practice cure that you're providing?
Because
you haven't described that I've asked you to describe.
I can't sit there and describe other, to a detail the clients that I've worked with that were healed and cured of PTSD. I can't do it. I can't sit there and say, "Hey, here's
what
a
do you
case
mean
study."
by cure?
I'm talking about.
You couldn't bring those case studies to a journal.
I'm sure.
I wanted to define cure real quick. I'm sorry. What do you mean by cure?
That you're no longer subjugated to the trauma and the recollection of those traumas in the way that you were when you were suffering the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Is that
Post-traumatic
curing? Is that being cured or managing? Because what I've heard is that people can manage it, but it's not going to go away. Like,
because that's the same thing they said with personality disorders. And I had clients that were diagnosed with borderline personality disorder that no longer carry the symptoms of those things after 12 and 14 sessions. So
is
everybody
that a cure or is that management?
It's a cure, because if you look at things like dialectical behavior therapy, everything there is reactionary, which means that when you think or reason in this way or you feel in this way, then here's some coping skills to deal with this, or here's the ways that you're going to regulate your mindfulness versus your emotional mind so that you can have a wise mind. And
How do you
those
tell
things,
listen,
I can't have like 20 questions come all at once if you're going to interrupt me.
I mean, I just wanted to ask, how can you tell the difference between management and cure, though?
All right, so, I think a lot of us are over our heads at this point. AR knows what she's talking about because she's been through the counseling, and she's lived with it. I think Ocean recognizes right here, though, that a lot of us, like I am, throughout the whole thing, I'm like, this is way above my pay grade. Messenger obviously has studied psychology. There is going to be questions that arise through the course of everything. And I will let you have your own questions because I still have questions. I still don't understand his motivations and why he does and says the things that he does and says. But Ocean clearly sees that we need some help. So he reaches out to Shannon Q. And Shannon Q is going to come in, and one of the first times, I think it was my first one-on-one with Messenger, and I should have thought about, foreshadowing this stream and including that when I covered it. He talked to me about Shannon Q. He asked if I knew Shannon Q. And at the time, I didn't. My after show had just happened maybe like the week before. So that was the first time I actually met Shannon Q. And I don't know Shannon Q well. Like, we interact but I just, Shannon Q's not like somebody that I had been interacting with. But he had asked me if I did, and he was really interested in having a conversation back then with Shannon Q in specific. And we're going to see that come out immediately because he has some beef with Shannon Q. But she's going to come in at 1:32. So we're going to get there, and we will see. And from here, I'm going to show you a large chunk of this interaction, but I will be pausing in and out. But this is important because this is how this debate really started. And this is when I really first started to see Messenger for the guy that people had been warning me about. It was hard for me because I'm very loyal. Like I will try to give you chance after chance. I'm very forgiving. Just ask Will Kincaid. Like I have literally shunned that dude 4 or 5 different times. He always worms his way back into my heart. The little shit. But, what can you expect from a baby manatee? But this is very important for the drama that would ensue, right? And I just want to reiterate, I gave him chance after chance after chance. Private conversations, live on air, I would ask him not to do the personal attacks. I would often say I did not want to have this conversation anymore. And you'll see why.
And I am cured of it, and it's not returning. Now, I know that does not speak to a majority of experience. I understand that. But to say that conclusively it is impossible for someone to be cured of PTSD because the majority are not is a simple falsehood. That's just not true.
Hey, Rage, real quick. Do you want me to drop or do you want somebody else to drop? What's up?
It needs to be demonstratable in a peer-reviewed journal. Case in point.
Real quick,
Eventually it would be, I suppose.
Let's deal with this first.
Yeah, we need to decide who's going to drop. I'd like Ocean to stay because he's inputting on the conversation. Would somebody that's not so much like to drop for a little while?
Godless,
gentleman that's been
mutable.
typing?
You guys haven't been talking, so.
I'll drop, man. I don't mind dropping.
All right, cool.
I appreciate it.
Point I want to make because I think there's a
later. You're more than welcome to come in. I always stay on later, and I say I'm gonna.
He said till midnight, so that means 3.
Yeah.
I think The issue here is that it's not. They're not saying that it's impossible merely
He's not
because
leaving.
it defies experience. The issue is that he's making claims without
There we go.
any evidence, and perhaps what he's saying is true, but we can't just believe something that's especially of such great something
It's a
if
big
true
claim.
it's a big claim, and if it was true, it would have a lot of power to be proven. That's the issue here.
But
And
we are talking about a total practice time of less than a decade, I believe. Is that correct, Messenger?
Are you talking about for PTSD?
Yeah. How long have you been applying these methods?
Well, as far as for treatment, it was back since 2015. So
Okay, so we're not even talking about a decade yet.
We're talking less than half a decade.
well, now
And
now the
everybody
issue
wants
comes.
a 20-year study based on it's been being applied for less than a decade. That's not plausible.
I know schizophrenics that have been in remission for half a decade before.
Well, schizophrenia is a very different disorder, just like bipolar 1 disorder is. See,
Sure.
post-traumatic stress disorder is not a biological problem. It's a cognitive and emotional problem that affects the biology. And it's no different than when people get into substance abuse.
Hello, Shannon Q.
Welcome,
Hey,
Shannon
Shannon.
Q.
Hello.
Shannon.
How's things? Things good? Everybody good? Everybody
All
having a good time?
Sorry for talking you up horribly. I tried though.
Did you talk me up horribly? I was
It
in and
might
out.
be someone.
No,
It
I
might
think
be
they've
good
made
to
you-
have someone knows
A
what
lot
you
of these
guys are
people,
talking about.
a lot of people have made Shannon Q their behavioral health messiah.
What? Why
It started
would
on
they?
Cyrus- it
That's a
started on
weird thing
Cyrus's
to
channel.
say.
So as soon as she comes into the room, Messenger reveals attacks her just right off the get. He's immediately intimidated that somebody is in the room that is going to actually understand a lot of the shit that he has been spewing about this cure for PTSD. So he, in my opinion, and I can't speak, I'm not in the man's head, but in my opinion, it appeared he became very defensive and really tried to turn the conversation away from him and put it on to Shannon Q. And you're going to see it right away because he's going to talk about credentials. Now, as this thing would move forward, several people would ask him about his credentials. And as far as I know, I could be wrong. As far as I know, as far as I can remember, as far as I can accurately recollect, he would never answer those questions. Not once. I could be wrong about that. But let's see what he asks of Shannon Q immediately upon her coming into my room.
What are you talking about? I
I
told
got you
people.
on Cyrus's channel because I said that I said personality disorders and PTSD could be cured, and they lost
Why-
their shit.
Why do you use the word cure?
I don't know if
Because
that's
I believe that they no longer
accurate.
because I believe that they no longer would have the symptoms of those things, and therefore no longer be triggered and affected in the ways that they had in the past. So that's why I say cure, healed.
Yeah, mental health symptomologies are we don't use the word cure because that would be like saying I was cured from feeling sad, right? Like you change your mental states, you don't cure mental states, you augment them, right?
Well, that's just using terminology. Cure just means you're free from it, that you're healed from it, that you no longer have the symptoms of it.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you go about curing PTSD?
Well, there's multiple things. One, everything that's with the symptomology of it's unique to each individual. So first off, you have to understand what's driving those things in themselves from a cognitive, experiential, and emotional standpoint. Because it's all those three things, those three processes are affecting the biological. So you have to start there. And if they are dealing with things like with suicidal ideation, or if they're dealing with homicidal ideation, or if they're dealing with depression that's going comorbid with their PTSD, then you have to look at the person as a whole. You can't just sit there and say, hey, with PTSD, here's exactly step 1, 2, 3, how we get through this. It isn't that way. And it never is with any treatment in behavioral health.
So you're saying that you have a methodology that will essentially cure using your terminology or
100%.
augment or change the mental state of anybody.
Yes. And basically what I'm calling it is new lens therapy.
How does it work?
What do you mean, how does it work?
How does it work? What do you do? What are the steps that you take?
Well, there has to be, obviously, assessment is no different than there'd be assessment in any way that anybody assesses clients. So you have to sit there and understand their biological, cognitive, experiential, and emotional well-being. and how they process information and how they cope with the world. What are the things that they struggle with specifically, and what are the underlying factors, not just from the events themselves that created it, but also from childhood, adolescence, and their background.
What qualitative inventory do you use to differentiate the experience in order to be able to create a treatment methodology? So like to differentiate somebody that has PTSD from somebody who has bipolar disorder, for example.
We use differential diagnosis. It's in the DSM.
So you use the DSM differential diagnosis technique?
You use the cross-cutting tools as well. Absolutely.
Okay, so
are you a practitioner?
No, I'm not a practitioner, but
I'm just asking.
No, I'm not, and I've never pretended to be.
No, I'm not accusing you. I just was trying to get your background. Are you an intake specialist? Are you a BHT? Are you a BHP?
No, I have a BA in psychology, an honors BA in psychology with a focus in perceptual cognition and communication theory. I'm on record saying that just about everywhere. So I'm not a clinician, and if what you're attempting to establish is my
I'm not trying to debunk your stuff. I'm not going to debunk you because of your education background. I just wanted to understand it. That's all.
Yeah, I haven't made any claims. I'm just asking questions.
And that's fair. And I just want you to know I'm not attacking your credentials.
But he was. And Shannon was all over the place, and he was obviously very familiar with Shannon because he was asking if I knew her. So he was very familiar with Shannon and everything Shannon says. Shannon doesn't claim to be anything she's not. She only claims that she wants to have hard conversations. What he doesn't like is that a woman has come in, and not specifically a woman, anybody. It doesn't have to be a woman or a man. Anybody that comes in and is going to disagree with him, that's what he doesn't like. And we're all like that to an extent. You know, I'm not going to pretend to be holier than Messenger reveals. But you're making very big claims here. You're claiming to be able to cure something that so far has no cure. It has a management. And now you're going up against somebody that is on equal footing in the terminology and the knowledge of it. And Messenger is backed into a corner. So he has to attack her credentials immediately. It's what he does. But Shannon Q has a stellar reputation. And Shannon Q knows what the fuck she's doing. So it will continue.
Oh, okay. So you were just curious about my credentials.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I want to understand where you're coming from when you're making the statements that you do. That's all.
Oh, what statement did I make that you were curious about?
About sit there and saying, how do I sit there and come up with a differential diagnosis, which is a very clinical term. And most bachelor level students wouldn't have that background.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well,
sure. That's why I asked. I was really curious, because I thought, okay, maybe she's an intake specialist. Maybe she's done assessment, for that position. Or maybe you worked as a BHT underneath therapist where you actually practice. So I wasn't sure.
No, I focused on cognition, and the reason I focused on cognition and communication was because I ultimately wanted to work with people with autism.
That's cool. With a cognitive background, did you do any studies for Ellis or Beck and subscribe to their viewpoint and worldview on behavioral health?
No.
Okay. Did you have a particular person or school of thought that you more adhered to, even in your bachelor's program?
Did I have a particular person or school of thought?
Did you just subscribe to cognitive behavior therapy or Adlerian theory or humanistic?
I like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay, because that stuff came from Ellis and Beck, so that's why I asked about them. That's all. Okay. Let's go back into dialogue. I'm good.
All right.
So I said that, I use the DSM-5. I used to use the DSM-4 TR, and then I also use the cross-cutting tools that are also available with the DSM-5.
Okay, perfect. So.
All right, where am I at? Yeah, pretty much perfect. All right, saw the question in the chat. Jefferson Spatchcock, has anyone ever asked Messenger that if he has cured people of PTSD, is he also capable of preventing it? I'm not sure if that specific question was asked. A lot of questions were asked, and I do end up skipping around a bit. I'm going to show you as much of this exchange as I can, and then Dragnot's going to come in and absolutely crush him. But Dragnot does that kind of thing. But pretty much, let me find my notes. Where am I at? What he's trying to do right now is interrogate Shannon Q when he's the one that made the claim. And all of us throughout this whole thing is like, dude, you're not even, you're saying cure, but you could put it in a different way that wouldn't be so woo. is basically what we're all trying to tell him, and it's basically what we would try to tell him continuing forward. Me and Ocean was really trying to like understand, like, why are you saying cure when it's not like, and he wouldn't budge, and it's clearly not. Well, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm gonna let Dragnot fucking wreck it for y'all. And Shannon Q is just going at him about the psychology and trying to understand. But he doesn't want Shannon Q to ask her questions. He wants to interrogate Shannon Q instead. Because it's just what he does. He makes the claim, but doesn't have anything to back it up. So he has to turn it on the other person and attack them. Let's continue.
You use the cross-cutting tools that are available within the DSM-5. So we'll just say you use all the tools for establishing diagnosis. You're absolutely, I'm certain, qualified to establish diagnoses. So once you get to the point where you can establish a diagnosis and you know what the issue is, how do you get from there to the point where you can say that you're able to completely alleviate symptoms? I'm really intrigued, because if you can do that, that's something I would want to know about. Like, I'm just curious.
Well, again, it comes from it's a very similar to cognitive behavior therapy. Again, it differentiates itself in the fact that the problem with cognitive behavior therapy is it doesn't sit there and incorporate how the biology has an impact on cognitive and behavior, and how cognitive behavior impacts biology, and how those things intermingle with each other. The other problem is if treatment for psychotropic medication is required, first off, most master level practitioners either need a nurse practitioner or psychiatrist or MD to be able to work in conjunction for psychotropic medication. The problem with psychotropic medication is that it doesn't work for everybody or work the same for everybody. So if you had somebody that was really dealing with suicidal ideation and they did need an antidepressant, then, or even an SSRI to help deal with it, it may not work with them. And then, they usually have to do 6 doses. Once they do 6 doses, it regulates in the body. From there, you have to monitor for 3 to 4 weeks to even see what type of behavioral effects that it has on there. And then does dosage need to, or does the treatment have to, or the prescription need to change, or does it need a different level of dosage, either higher or less?
Yeah, because an SSRI will only work if your neural receptors aren't absorbing serotonin fast enough, because it's a reuptake inhibitor, right?
That makes sense.
It is, yeah. And the other problem with it is you don't know when your clients are using, or how the using is affecting those things in conjunction with the medication that they're taking. Are they using?
No, I agree. I'm not an advocate for, hey, let's just diagnose everybody with something and give them medication.
Yeah. I like medication. To me, is a last resort when something is so prevalent in the biology. So always working with people on a cognitive level more than anything. And obviously you can only do that with usually clients that are in their teens and up. It's almost very difficult to do it with children. And I did work with children and families as well. But when you're dealing with somebody with like PTSD, obviously it's different for every single client. And it's different in terms of the severity of it, other comorbid disorders that may go along with it. And you have to look at the person as a whole. You can't sit there and say, hey, here's PTSD, and here's somebody that has PTSD, and they're also having, depression, or they're having an adjustment disorder with anxiety or depression. So to look at somebody as a whole, but I can tell you this, with the clients that I worked with, there was never a single client in the year that I practiced that needed more than 12 to 14 sessions.
See,
to be able
that's where I'm like, whoa, like that's what makes me whoa.
And here's
because that just, you can understand how that would seem like an extraordinary claim, though. Like, I've been reading some research on. I'm a weird person who reads research in her spare time, because I'm.
That's not weird. I think it's awesome.
So I'm a loser nerd, even though I only have a BA and I'm not a clinician. But that's what I do. So I've been reading. I think it's.
You hear Shannon's little jab. Shannon's lethal.
Elbican, or it's on early work by Donald Meachbaum. Do you know who Donald Meachbaum is?
I remember the name, but I never studied stuff he did.
Yeah, I mean, so it's some older CBT research. Like, initially when it was called cognitive behavior modification, before it transitioned into the cognitive behavioral therapy, sort of instantiation, where it's actually used in therapeutic practice. This was more so just research models kind of establishing that it had some sort of efficacy. And so I'm just wondering if you incorporate the key principles, and if you incorporate the key principles of these sort of cognitive behavioral modification strategies, how do you augment them in between patients, since we've already established that there's clear differentials between patients, and you seem to say that within 12 sessions you can augment somebody's behavior in a very specific way from patient to patient. So that would tell me that since we've already acknowledged the fact that there's massive difference between patients and symptomology and diagnostics, then you would need, I would think, massively different and very personalized techniques between patients. Or do you have some sort of, overreaching, do you do the systematic examination of the role of cognitive factors that they have with them? Do you do sort of self-instructional training for them on how to mitigate those factors through like role-playing experience and limited exposure? Do you do some sort of like stress inoculation training?
Now, I think it's around this part that Drag comes into the chat, and Drag starts asking some questions. And Drag might have been there the whole time. I can't quite remember. And maybe we just didn't have room to get him in for a while. But he's asking legitimate questions in the chat, and you can kind of see me, like I'm reading shit. And I was like, I got to get Drag in here.
And like, do you make them aware of sort of introspective strategies to essentially kind of talk themselves out of emotional states and rationalize with themselves? Are those factors, because those are sort of key components in CBT, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on that. So is that the type of thing that you incorporated, and what do you do that other practitioners aren't doing in order to speed up the process?
Well, one of the things, again, is being curious. And I don't think that most therapists that work professionally, whether they be social workers or clinical counselors, do this. Is people are quick to assess and diagnose. And then once they diagnose, based on their schooling, they put people in a category or bubble, and they attempt to treat around that. And that's a problem. That's probably the biggest problem. Second thing is a lot of therapists and practitioners, especially those I even went to school with, were very unhealthy in their own nature. They haven't taken care of their own issues and problems, which leads for transference and countertransference issues, which means they're getting. So when you're talking about even doing the assessment and getting ready to do treatment, that's a big problem in itself in the behavioral health community. So as far as my approach, if people can at least get through and be curious enough to understand what they're really dealing with the individual that they're working with, then from that standpoint, yes, there has to be a understanding and introspective view of helping them understand themselves by giving them a model that they can look at and say, yes, this is how the way that I act and behave, and these are the determinants that are driving these actions, behaviors, choices, decisions, expressions, feelings.
So strong introspective focus, and I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just there's a lot of interesting things to dissect.
There is that aspect of it, and I have.
All right, so didn't mean to do that because we're not done with that. So what's up, Will and Gaelic Knox? Will, your $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Don't have to keep paying me to be in Discord. It's not really just my decision. I'm the one that booted that ass, but I have to talk to everybody because you take management. So I'm going to talk to Allie. I didn't get a chance to talk to Allie because we didn't do our live stream yesterday. Scheduling thing came up. She couldn't make it. So I'll talk to her. Hold your horses. But what's up, Gaelic Knox? We're talking about our favorite messenger. And again, I want to reiterate, like I'm sitting here and I'm reading the messages and I'm seeing Dragnot ask very legitimate questions. And I'm waking up to the fact that Messenger Reveals is what some people had told me he is, to where I liked his Christianity. I was grasping for Christians that I could really enjoy and like, and because I was covering so many extreme fundamentalists, that I really wanted to like him. But I'm waking up through this whole thing like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? A guy is sitting here claiming to cure something that, so far as we know, doesn't have a cure. And Dragnot's asking very legitimate questions in the chat. And Shannon Q's going back and forth with him. And it's going to continue for a bit. I'm going to skip forward to when Drag comes in. But basically, Messenger reveals cure for PTSD is himself. That's what he's saying. It's his methodology. He claims that it's universal, but there's a lot of really woo aspects to it. AR's in the chat. She can speak to it because they trust me. The AR and Messenger reveals feud is born right here, and you're gonna see it because AR is gonna go at this dude right alongside of Dragnot. And I'm just sitting back, just like, what the fuck am I into? Like, and I'm not a psychology dude. I understand a little bit. I understand instinctively a little bit of human nature, but these terminologies, I think that Shannon Q came in, and then he would also combat David McGinnis. I think that they might actually have a decent relationship. I'm not sure, but David McGinnis was another person later on in the line that Messenger would come across that actually knew what the fuck he was talking about in regards to being educated on this. So, it became a very interesting dumpster fire that would continue and continue and continue. But Drag was asking really good questions, as Dragnot does. Dragnot usually has really good questions. He's gonna come up in this bitch.
I'm in Nova Scotia, so
that doesn't help me with the time zone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear you. I thought you said
like here it's 8:00 p.m.
It's midnight almost.
Okay.
So I'm still not really clear on exactly how you equip them with those.
Real quick, hey, what's up, Yuri Bench, all the way from the Holy Land. Friend of the show, very kind, generous person. Also, I saw Tatted is up in the house. Yeah, what's up, everybody? What's up? We're almost done with this one. I could have made this like a 3-hour stream, but I got to go to work tonight. So I'm going to do part 1 of Messenger Reveals, and then part 2 is going to really delve into his personal attacks as this thing transpired over the course of a month or two.
Tools. I mean, you've said a lot about how you get there and how you assess and
tell me
sort
this
of generalities about it.
Tell me this though, because again, you and I could talk for 3 or 4 hours, and I don't think we're still going to get to where you want to get to. Would you be willing to make time every week from now for the next 2 months, every week for at least an hour, to have discussions with me privately regarding this?
An hour a week?
Yes.
That's a big commitment for me.
You have 112 waking hours each week.
I'm also a single mom.
More like you're trying to deliberately dodge defining your
channel.
mechanism of action.
Well, hold on for a second.
You're not the arbiter of what my free time looks like and what I do.
No, I didn't say you had free time. I just said you had 112 hours each week.
I run a baseball league. I play competitive soccer. I have a full-time job. I run a YouTube channel. I'm booked on streams. And I'm a single mother whose child is also in sports, has school, and believe it or not, has friends. And also, so do I. Every once in a while, I get to see them.
Shannon,
so an hour a week is quite a bit. And I sleep sometimes.
Could I suggest something, Shannon? Because you mentioned this earlier. If he had something, I don't know, peer reviewed and published, you would make time to read it, correct?
Absolutely, 100%.
So
if you want to send me something to read, I'd read it, absolutely.
So my question is, so if what he's saying is so efficacious, why can't we just simply read about it? In peer review, just like I would go and read anything in my field.
Yeah, because I just don't even get what it is yet. That's what
I've still not heard an answer to that, because I heard the other gentleman ask it, and then you came in asking about it, and I've still not heard a solid reason.
Yeah, he does that, Gaelic Knox. He couldn't, when asked for proof, when asked for, some verification, he can't back it up. So basically what I got from that, watching it, this is probably like the 3rd or 4th time I've watched it now, because I did make an edited video that I deleted about 3 months ago. What I got from that is he's basically telling her that come and talk to me for an hour every week so I can indoctrinate you into what I want to indoctrinate you, and I can convince you into believing something that you clearly don't believe because I provided no evidence for you to believe such. And that's always been the problem with this argument. If you're going to make it I just had a stream, I skipped over to get to this, with Dr. Josh, Ocean, and Suris, where we talked about, people that made really big claims. You have to back that up. And to lead into this, for my very next stream for somebody to make as big a claim as, oh, I have the cure for PTSD, you know, you better be able to back that shit up if you're in a room full of people that are good at asking questions.
Peer reviewed. I never once claimed that it was peer reviewed.
Well, that's why I'm asking why not. That's essentially what I'm asking.
Because I didn't want to make time to do it at this point.
Okay, so you're purporting that you have these this system that is more efficacious than what you perceive to be the standard in the field, but you don't want to make time to actually put it through its paces and produce something that could potentially revolutionize the field and actually help patients and, by your words, cure what's actually happening.
It would, because it's a universal model for human behavior, which does not exist out in the field right now.
Okay, so then that still doesn't give me a reason as to really why you would not publish it, so that people like Shannon and others who are curious, that they can look at it and go, oh, okay, sure, I see exactly what he's talking about.
The simple answer is this, and nobody's going to like it. The simple answer is this. If you guys understood, and the world understands how and why we act the way we do, there's going to be people in positions of power and authority that abuse it.
All right, we're at the conspiracy here. I'll probably back that up just a little bit. But he's essentially saying that nobody understands but him. You know, his way is different because his way works. The problem is there's no verification of that. There's only messenger reveals word. That's never going to be good enough. But let's just a little bit, because this is the start of the conspiracy theory. And wow, so just a little bit.
And as to really why you would not publish it, so that people like Shannon and others who are curious, that they can look at it and go, oh, okay, sure, I see exactly what he's talking about.
The simple answer is this, and nobody's going to like it. The simple answer is this. If you guys understood, and the world understands how and why we act the way we do, there's going to be people in positions of power and authority that abuse it.
Whoa.
The thing is, if there was any accuracy to his claims, people would probably be throwing funding his way to actually study the shit.
Oh, well, lots of
you can't.
You understand?
3 years isn't enough time to establish any sort of long-term case study, or even 3 years also isn't enough to even gather a proper.
I've been doing this for 13 and a half years.
I just said that I practiced. What's the word I'm looking for? You already told us that you've only been doing this cure method since 2015.
You're not.
You said you've only been doing this since 2015.
You listen. No, you listen.
Tar, you're repeating yourself, buddy.
What I'm saying is, I said that I practiced with clients for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. I said that I've been doing this, and I've said it on my live streams. 13 and a half years I've been doing study and research regarding this, and it's applicable to my own life and how I act and behave.
Okay, so
you can't bring it to a peer-reviewed journal.
Well, hold on for a second.
Bring it to a peer-reviewed journal. If that's your be all end all,
you'd be set to earn a Nobel Prize if you could cure PTSD.
Hold on.
I'm helping people.
You could potentially help millions of people if you actually brought your findings to the scientific forefront.
Damage millions of people because people abuse it.
How could you claim to be moral if you want to, like,
is this thing on? Hold on.
Make all of these people suffer by not showing?
Tar, you're very excited.
Reggie, let this other guy talk. The guy with no shirt on.
I've been waiting to get in.
The reason why I take this argument so personally is because I've been diagnosed with PTSD from.
So, like, you know, the guy with no shirt on, Dragnon Silvis, but he doesn't like talking to AR because AR will just tell you like it is. You know, and he wants to be able to dance around, but like Dragnon's he's not being any easier on you. And the problem is you don't have anything to back up the claim. You know, if you would have came in and said that, you know, I have a method that works better than other methods, that's one thing. And that's the thing that I would try to tell him is it's your wording, dude. It's the word cure. And he just never would get off of it. Time and time again, would just never get off of it. And in fact, would use his psychology against people. Attack their PTSD, the instances surrounding their PTSD, and the guidance and counseling that they were receiving for their PTSD. And if you are a practiced therapist, I don't think you would fucking do that. It's unethical, in my opinion. But we'll continue.
Childhood trauma, and
Yeah, I know people with PTSD.
charlatanry really irks me.
Would you like to be free from it?
Like,
yes or no?
I'm a real big James Randi fan.
Yeah, so I get it. Like atheist rational, I get it. Like I get it. As somebody who does suffer from PTSD, I get it, man. But the issue is that when you have people who are convinced that what they produce is efficacious, and then you ask them why they haven't done it, that should tell you right there. Like there's no actual reason. And that's like the piece of information I wanted to give you guys is that the VA, the Department of Defense, since 2012 has given at a minimum $100 million for people to research PTSD and TBI. So there is no shortage of funds for people to go into this field, whether it be cognitive behavioral therapy or various other means to help this situation, because it is an epidemic where you have people committing suicide. So
at a very high rate, especially
at a very high rate, but still that should be encouraging for somebody who is supposedly curing it to go and publish stuff.
The biggest problem with military members suffering from PTSD is not what they go through in the war, but what their preparation and before they go to it.
Wow. That's another big claim, Messenger. That's another really big claim. You are claiming that the training they receive is the cause of their PTSD, not the war. Not seeing body parts, not seeing people blow the fuck up in front of you, not the act of killing other human beings. The training.
Okay. Because here's the thing. Well, let me finish. Sure. If I took military members through a training course for 12 weeks, very few would ever come back with PTSD.
Okay, so here's the thing. Have you ever actually gone through basic training?
Yes,
I have.
Okay, so you are a former military member then?
Prior service Air Force.
Huh? Air Force. Okay. Oh God. Okay. So what you thought you went through in Air Force? I'm sorry. I'm just going to be real with you. I'm just going to be real with you. What you went through in the Air Force is nothing. I went to Sand Hill, the home of the infantry. Okay, like I get it. We went through some rough stuff, but that's the point that I'm making. It varies greatly. I don't. So if we're talking about the experiences in basic training that can prime you for PTSD, then that has to first be established. If you're relying on peer-reviewed research that can show that people have PTSD post basic training, then I would take your point. But is that statement that you just made, is that backed by peer review? Have people actually found PTSD in I mean large swaths of soldiers post basic training?
No, I have not presented my information for peer review.
Okay, but just
specific reasons that I already answered.
But that's a problem. So if you're making these claims, that's a problem. That's a problem because you're not. You know that once people look at your
to receive this information, you believe that it's going to be helpful for people to receive this information. But I'm telling you that there's people in positions of power, prosperity, and greed that are going to use it for their own benefit.
Hey guys, doesn't Jilly Juice say the reason why she doesn't like bring any of her research to peer review is because she thinks that people are gonna take advantage of her cure or some bullshit like that?
That's not very straw, man.
Jilly Juice.
I'm not talking about bringing it to people to help them, because I'll help any individual that ever wants to make time for help.
So,
and there's probably not a single person on this panel who doesn't need help.
You're saying that you're not going to bring your findings because of some perceived
I'm
conspiracy.
saying that I will not present it to the world until
can you bring any evidence of that conspiracy being even true? How do you know people are going to take advantage of this? How do we know you're just not a charlatan who doesn't want to help?
I understand
all the people he claims to be able to help.
And it's a good point. And Messenger would... I mean, this would continue, so I'm sure he's going to clarify. I haven't watched those streams yet. But as I've said many times, this continues into several streams. Several times when I've asked, I don't want to talk about this anymore, it still got brought up. And it then spilled over on other channels. So we're going to skip forward. I think Shannon Q leaves because it's getting late for her. And the conversation is really not going very far. Messenger Reveals isn't going to budge on his big claims. You saw there, he has no evidence that that it's basic training. Now, Richard in the chat asked a really good question. Does basic training prepare people enough for war? I think that's a good question. But it's definitely war. And I'm not saying basic training has no effects on a person. I'm not saying that at all. But to not think that war doesn't have the effect, that war isn't the main problem, well, that to me just doesn't seem very logical. Doesn't seem very logical. And that was his claim, was that it was basic training and not the war. That was his direct claim. So, he's a person that makes these big claims that doesn't have any backup or evidence behind them. And then when people call him out, he gets pissed off and he attacks them. Which, do you? I'm a raging atheist. Who am I to talk? I don't think I do that, though. I think I let people attack me. I will attack your ass back, but you can attack me. But I'm not going to make big fucking claims that I can't back up either. All right, so we're going to skip forward to 204 right here. Shannon's still here, but actually, Shannon's going to get back involved, but it is getting late for her, so she will be dipping out soon.
It's very egotistical what you're doing, man.
Because again, this has nothing to do with me.
Well, actually, I think it does, because when I first started listening to you, the first thing you did was demean people who did first let everyone know you had a master's degree, then demean people who had some education in the field, and then claim that it wasn't relevant. And even after you asked about 3 clarifying questions concerning their education, people don't posture that much on here unless they actually care about that sort of stuff. You do realize that, right?
I don't care what other people do.
Yes, you do, because you engage in a conversation concerning what people do.
From my perspective, I was curious, and you guys don't understand the difference of being curious and debunking, because that's what you people do. I don't.
Yeah, well, you know very little about me.
Can I interject for one second?
I said you people as a whole.
Wait,
because you're drawing assertions.
Oh my gosh, can I just 1 second? I'm sorry, I'm quieter than I usually am. I think what he's referring to is more so, you did ask about my qualifications, and I'm assuming that you're probably referring about me, because that's where this dialogue went. Yes. It's when you preface that by saying things like Shannon Q is people's personal psychology messiah, right? And
that was reference to Cyrus's channel, just
right?
So you know.
Yeah. But I understand. But when you, I actually don't understand because I didn't see it. But what you're doing is you're setting up a narrative in people's minds when you use that as an introduction to your question. Maybe this wasn't in your intent, but it seems as though you're saying, oh, Shannon's everybody's personal messiah, and then you introduce what my qualifications are, and then you're able to kind of diminish my qualifications by saying, see, she doesn't live up to that expectation that I just set. So it's a neat sort of communication tactic that some people use so that they can say, I was just asking questions, when really you were setting up an opportunity so that you could establish my criteria and my qualifications with the preface that, hey, people think you're a messiah, but when you look at it in reality, she's actually.
Wow, he never tried to tear you down.
No, he didn't have to, because he used that to establish the preface for what he was just about to do. Because I studied communication with my BA.
Shannon, you're absolutely right. Shannon, your point is absolutely right. But do you realize on their channel, they stated, and I do quote, Shannon will tear him apart when it comes to this stuff.
Okay, well, I didn't watch that, and what other people say about me doesn't have anything to do with my actions.
But it does, because they're posturing you as somebody who is the advocate and the expert of behavioral health.
I'm an advocate for.
No, I'm just telling you that from their viewpoint.
And I have a larger knowledge base than perhaps they do and some other people.
I agree. 100%.
I'm pretty sure people were just expressing the fact that they wanted this conversation to eventually happen, and you're extrapolating way too much from it.
Right. And you're projecting that onto me in the conversation, and that kind of leaves a bad taste in some people's mouth.
I haven't brought it up since the beginning. And
right.
I told you I was really curious. I was curious.
I believe that you were, but that's what he's prefacing, and I think that there's some efficacy to it. So I just wanted you to just maybe acknowledge that, because it seemed relatively clear, but isn't always able to be articulated. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to being quiet again.
No, you don't have to be. Please speak up.
Well, no, because I think this is interesting, because on the one hand, you want to leverage your education, you want to leverage different things, but then when people ask you to leverage your work and actually provide it, so that people can benefit from it,
I have no problem sharing that. I have no problem. Listen to me. I have no problem sharing any information that I've learned about with any human being. I don't have a problem don't have a problem with sharing some of the ideas and concepts. But unless you want to sit there and really take it on a one-to-one level, let's say I'm talking to you about some of the things you're struggling with. I'm talking to some of the things about anybody's struggling with. I've had those conversations even with Nakasuchi on his channel saying, hey, here's what I'm seeing and here's what I think. Here's the way that I perceive this. And here's how I think this can change or be better. I'm not doing it for my own personal benefit. I'm not doing it to proselytize. I'm not trying to do it for any personal benefit other than trying to help the world be a better version of itself.
You just personally proselytized to me just a little while. You asked me if I wanted to be cured from my PTSD.
No, I'm saying, no, that's not what I said.
That that conversation was brought up on the channel because we're proselytizing to somebody in the chat. That's why that conversation even happened in the first place.
You're straw manning.
May I?
No, let me finish my point.
He did say exactly that. He literally, word for word, asked Shay if Shay would like to be free from her PTSD. Literally in those words. Where his exact words were, would dude in the red hat, would you like to be free of your PTSD or something like that? My dad's here, so I'll be wrapping this up soon. She should be in there, or she's right there. All right, so yeah, we'll be wrapping this up soon. I got one more clip to watch, and we'll get there in a second. But basically, Messenger did say that. Messenger said that, I can cure your PTSD. Or he said, would you like to be free of your PTSD? So he literally did say what he's now saying he didn't say, in that Shay is straw manning him. And Dragon, Shan, and Q are exactly right. Messenger thinks that his mind and word games aren't very recognizable, but they're obvious. Everybody sees through them. This is something that will become a problem. And this dumpster fire rages on for about another 40 minutes at least. But it would be a problem going forward as well. We're going to skip forward to 2:14, watch our last clip, and then we'll get out of here today.
Beyond me.
You guys demand something that continues to fail you.
All it shows is that you're morally
you guys continue to go to therapy with therapists that don't do anything to deliver you from the things that you suffer from.
Feed your ego. That's terrible.
Well, hold on for a second. How do you know the effects of my therapy? I'm curious. Well, hold on. How do you know the effects of my therapy?
Because if your therapy was going well, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Or maybe it has gone well, and I see the value in it, and I'm encouraging you to go the same route that my therapist went.
I don't have those issues.
Is that a possibility?
I don't have those issues.
Answer the question. No. Please answer my question.
Your question.
Please. Okay. So maybe I see how efficacious my treatment was, and I want you to go through the same steps that my therapist went through.
All right.
One of the things.
Marty, I did speak to him about a week and a half ago on Converse Contenders channel, and I was watching him, and I was like, I was thinking, I went on and was pretty nice to him, and I told him I'd have that private conversation that I told him a long time ago when I kicked him off my channel that I would have with him, and I never did it because really there's no justification to the actions, but I was considering it, like maybe having that private conversation and maybe trying to get the guy to finally see something. But then in that chat, or maybe it was like the very next night or something like that, but he attacked a mutual friend again, a person that he just can't seem to let go. And it's like, no, that's never going to happen. I don't see a lot of the interactions, but I have heard that he still attacks certain people. And then I saw it with my own eyes, and I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. So, we did talk briefly, Marty, about a week and a half ago, but it was the last time, and it's when I really decided that I had to do this right here, which was expose exactly what happened on the channel instead of whatever convoluted justifications and apologetics he's trying to put forward for it. But we'll continue. This one is only a couple minutes, so we're almost done.
Tell me how your life is better because of your therapy.
Just answer my question.
I don't know what your therapy is.
Every time I ask you a direct question, please answer the question, either yes or no. It's fine.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
You
don't know, but you're making assessments about my life and my treatment.
But you have an issue with my worldview.
Why? How are you able to determine that?
We're just asking.
Because obviously my assertions interfere with the treatment you've received.
Not at all. But again, how do you know the efficaciousness?
My assertions interfere with the treatment you've received and what you've been told. That's the difference.
What have I been told?
I don't think
you want
so.
something peer-reviewed.
Like treat any mental health condition, but they right now have more scientific
You'd
backing
rather have
than
a peer-reviewed article from a bunch of ignorant-ass people that don't do anything to help you than somebody who's offering you the truth.
Because they don't agree with you?
It has nothing to do with agreeing with me. It's not working for you. If it was working for you, have a problem with it.
You're presuming what happened during my treatment.
Well, the thing is, I have empathy for the millions of other people that are suffering. It's not just about me.
You're standing against people you don't understand.
I'm not. You have this weird ego thing where you need to be people's personal Jesus, and you don't want to share this because you can have that link with that person.
You guys are proud of your PTSD.
Terrible,
no, you guys are proud of your PTSD. You're
I'm
proud.
not sure how you can be proud of it.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, Richard was taking Messenger's side. I think they're still pretty good friends. But maybe Richard, as we go through, you might see some things you hadn't. So maybe that will change for you. I think I have very good reasons why I'm no longer friends with Messenger Reveals. But right there, Messenger does what Messenger does. You know, he's backed into a corner, so he has to attack the person and their therapy and tell them that obviously their therapy isn't working for them, or they wouldn't be attacking him for making a claim about having a cure that nobody knows anything about. And that's the problem. If you're going to come into the skeptic community and make really, really big claims, you're going to get asked a lot of questions. And if you cannot back up those claims, well, you're going to be ridiculed and you're going to be forced into nothingness, as the Messenger Reveals has. His channel's nothing. The whole debate on whether or not I should even cover this, the reason why I deleted the edited video is because he's nothing. It's punching down. You want to punch up. Pure and simple. Messenger's nothing, and he makes these stupid-ass claims, and it's sad because he is smart. He is a very intelligent man who is very insecure, in my opinion, who can't take the personal attacks. If you're going to dish it out, you should be able to take it. That's always been my stand. But the damage was done. You know, this dumpster fire would go for about another 20, 30 minutes, and then everybody would dip out, and then other people would come in. Sokka would come in later. We would talk. We would actually get back to a civil conversation again. This was a 5.5 hour live stream. Back then, they were really long. So, yeah, this was just part one of Messenger Reveals, y'all. This was the beginning. This was the Cure for PTSD stream that really broiled out through several of my streams onto other channels like the Great Debate Community, Cyrus's channel, and it has affected a lot of people that you guys know, that I know. And he continues with these attacks till this very day against some of these people. And he will attack their specific instances. At one point, he will tell Lady Tasha that she doesn't have PTSD and that she's lying about it. That will be in the next episode. Until then, I'll see you soon.